I'm Jordan Poole from the University of Michigan Basketball. You are watching TR Sports. Please enjoy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another TR Sports. I'm your host, Toby, and man, what a week in sports. Even though the major sports, NBA, NHL, NFL, all the big winter sports have ended, there's still so much to talk about because it is the NBA draft week. There's a lot to cover today, and we're going to go through the list. As you can see on top, we're going to start by talking about the Lakers finally getting Anthony Davis last Saturday, and then we're going to talk about the NBA draft and Zion, Ja Morant, RJ Barrett, and all the other guys who went up there and what I think of each pick. We'll also be talking about some of the trades that happened. Of course, we can't go over all of them because there's so many. Then we're going to grade the Sixers draft and why I'm happy but still frustrated with the Sixers draft this year. And then we're going to talk about Bobo and his colossal fall from top 5 pick to second rounder in this year's NBA draft and why that happened. That'll be a shorter segment. And then we'll round it off with me talking about / ranting the Philadelphia Phillies and how they've been playing recently because I've not been happy. Before we go into any of our main stories, let's touch on a couple things. Number one, congratulations to Jordan Poole, the guy who does the intro to our podcast. He's officially now an NBA first-round pick, going 28 to the Golden State Warriors. So good luck out there, Jordan. I hope you succeed in your career. So very happy for him. But let's get into the Lakers deal. So this is our first story. Anthony Davis. All year last year was unhappy with his situations, didn't like it in New Orleans. Personally, I don't like New Orleans, so I can't blame him. But the city, of course. But he hated it. He wanted to get out. And he wanted to go to the Lakers. So Lakers mid-year try to put some crazy package together for Anthony Davis. But the Pelicans reject it for some reason. And here they are, the Pelicans today. And they now have this package that the Lakers sent, a crazy package. Pretty much all of the Lakers' talent, young talent and team for Anthony Davis. So the Pelicans agreed to a deal where they sent Anthony Davis to the Lakers. In return, they got Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and 3 first-rounders. And that includes the 4th pick in this year's draft, who they later traded to Atlanta. So, a lot happening. Did they? Yeah, they did trade to Atlanta later. So a lot happening in this year's draft, but we'll get to that later. So, what I think of the trade, my thoughts on it. Of course, I think it's a win-win. I feel like at this point, the Lakers have to try to get a superstar to get LeBron to team up LeBron with. I feel like if they failed this offseason, they would not hear the end of it. And I'm pretty sure many Lakers fans like this deal. They like that they got Anthony Davis. Of course, they gave up a lot. Josh Hart, that's fine. That's a fine deal. I'm not too upset if I was a Lakers fan giving up Josh Hart. Brandon Ingram, I don't think he's going to be much. So, again, I wouldn't be too upset, again, if I was a Lakers fan. But giving up Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and 3 first-round picks together is a big package. And I don't want to give Lonzo Ball away if I'm the Lakers because I still think he has potential. And you're already giving away the number 4 pick. So this is a huge deal. This was a big package. Luckily, they got to keep Kyle Kuzma. That's really all you can say about their young stars that they got to keep because they gave away the bulk of their talent. And for New Orleans, they draft Zion this year, and they have all these guys, and they still have the 10th pick from this year's draft. 10th or 8th, I don't really remember. But they will be stacked. No, they had the 8th pick, and they picked Jackson Hayes. There you go. But they will be stacked. They will be an interesting team to watch. You'll see plenty of nationally televised Pelicans games now that Zion is a Pelican member, New Orleans-based basketball player now. And for the Lakers, you get your guy Anthony Davis that you've been wanting the whole season, and now you have a guy to team up with LeBron. And now you're the favorites to win the championship too. So there's no way I can't say this was a win for the Lakers, but it is also a win for the Pelicans. So I think a good trade all around. Everyone got what they wanted. Pelicans get their big package of young stars, and they have Zion and the 4th pick, which they later flipped to the 8th pick. So great trade by both teams, and I really hope the Pelicans will be fun to watch and the Lakers will be fun to watch this year because they just flipped roles. The Lakers are now super contenders, and the Pelicans are now trying to rebuild off this young talent. So when we come back, we will be doing 3 different segments about the NBA draft. We will be talking about the trades and the draft overall. Then we're going to be talking about what I think of the Sixers and their draft night, which is really confusing. And then we'll talk about Bobo. So those are our 3 draft segments coming up here on TR Sports. Welcome back to TR Sports. It is now time to talk about the biggest story of the week. The NBA draft has been completed. My favorite time of the year, personally, when it's time for the NBA offseason and we get into the NBA draft. It's a lot of fun for me. And then there's free agency afterwards, but I enjoy the draft more. And that's why I've gone to the past 3 drafts, and it's been a lot of fun for me each year. So let's talk about some of the picks, what I think of them. Let's get right into it. So the New Orleans Pelicans pick Zion number 1. What can you say to this pick? It's a great pick. It's expected. I'm not going to grade every pick like I did with the NFL, but I am going to talk about each one, each interesting one. Of course, Zion goes number 1. I'm excited to see if this Pelicans team is able to go to the playoffs with this young core, which I think is possible, but we'll see. John Moran, of course, going number 2. Also a great pick. RJ Barrett going number 3 to the Knicks. That should be a huge thing for the Knicks. Every Knicks fan at the draft was so hyped for RJ because he's going to be a great player, and he's been hyped up since high school, actually. So that should really help the Knicks out. I was surprised when the Cavs took Darius Garland at number 5. I did not expect them to go with him just because they have Colin Sexton. I was thinking a different fit. I thought they would go more of a fit pick. But apparently they want to go for the best player available, which I support that strategy. I'm just not sure exactly where you'd put Colin Sexton. So Beeline has to work with Garland and Sexton now, and that's some 2 great talents on that roster. Jarrett Culver, number 6 to the Timberwolves. Again, I'm not a fan of him. I think he's going to be a bust. He goes number 6. I don't think he's great. Not a great shooter, and we did a breakdown on him, and I was not high on him, if you guys remember. So I'm not a fan of that pick, especially if they're Timberwolves. I think they're going to mess that up. And not only that, but Kobe White's still on the board. I don't understand personally how you take Jarrett Culver over Kobe White. Kobe White is a dynamic scorer, and he's got a lot to work on. But looking at his prospect status, I am willing to take the risk on Kobe White anytime if I'm an NBA team. Jackson Hayes, that's a fit pick pretty much. Goes number 8 to the New Orleans, where Zion is. So this is a fit pick. They have a center, and they have all the other young roster spots with Lonzo, Ingram, Zion. So they should be a really interesting team to watch this year, and there should be a lot of excitement over New Orleans. Then you have Rui Hachimura, the first Japanese-born player coming into the NBA. Is 9 high for him? Yes, it is high. But he has some great potential. He's elite physically. He's a modern forward, and he's chiseled and built. And he can score, and he's very, very athletic. One of the most athletic players in the draft. Then another surprise was Cameron Johnson going so early to the Suns. I did not expect that, but he had a great 3 seasons at North Carolina, and he'll probably be able to translate a lot of that into the NBA. Romeo Langford gets picked up by the Celtics. So the Celtics have Langford, who is a great pick, hands down. I was really high on him. I thought he was going to be a top 5 pick, and I thought he was going to surprise a lot of guys coming into the draft this year. But he ended up falling quite a bit to 14. But looking at what he did in high school, there's still a lot of potential, even though he did have a down season at Indiana. Chuma Okeke, no one expected him to go this high. I certainly didn't. Coming out of Auburn, I thought he might fall to the Sixers even in the second round, but I guess the Orlando Magic were high on him and decided to take the risk, and he is certainly a talented player, and we'll see how he does as such a high pick. Would I do that? Probably not, but that is a risk the Orlando Magic apparently wanted to take. So the Sixers take Matisse Thybulle at 20. Man, do I love this pick for the Sixers. I think we're going to talk about it more, so I'm not going to say much, but I think the pick is great, and they traded up for him. Brandon Clark from Gonzaga goes down to 21. Solid pick, solid at everything, had a great run at Gonzaga, so we'll see how he's able to translate that. He's a versatile defender, and he's got a lot of potential in the NBA, and especially at a late first. That's pretty good. Darius Bazley goes 23, and this is what I think is interesting. Darius Bazley decided to take an internship at New Balance for $1 million. So he decided to do that instead of going to college, and he ended up going 2 picks before Nasir Little, who was ranked higher than Darius, but had a terrible year at UNC in college. So I want to see how this Bazley pick affects possible future prospects and how that goes later down the road, to see if people decide to take internships too, kind of like Darius did. Kevin Porter Jr. goes at the end of the first round. I was upset about this because I wanted him on the Sixers. Great shooter. At one point was really high touted. Fell a bit later in the draft than some thought he did, and he's got a lot of potential to end out the first round. Second round, Nick Claxton falls a bit to 31, goes in the second round, got a lot of potential at that position. Other interesting picks that I want to talk about is Carson Edwards the Celtics stealing Carson Edwards from the Sixers in the middle of the second round. I was upset. The Sixers could use a great shooter like that. Bobo falling to 44. We'll talk about that more later. But he will be a very interesting player, and I think he should have gone higher in the draft. And then, of course, our guy Jalen Hands, top guy coming into UCLA, did not have a great 2 seasons there, but he ended up getting drafted anyway at the end of the second round. So that is the draft. And when we come back, we are going to look at Bobo and why he fell so far in the draft here on TR Sports. Welcome back to TR Sports. It is now time to talk more about the draft, and we're going to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. Going into this draft, we needed shooters. We needed guys like Carson Edwards to really fill out our roster, and I wasn't really looking at anybody else. My main players that I really wanted for the Sixers, if possible, was Tyler Hero. I wanted Carson Edwards. I wanted the guy from Belmont that his name is not in my head right now. I just wanted shooters. That's what I wanted going into this draft. And the Sixers didn't really do that. We come into the draft looking for the shooters, of course, and then we ended up trading up with the Celtics. So we trade our 33rd pick and the 24th pick for the 20th pick, I believe. And we got Matisse Thybulle out of Washington. And he is going to be really good, and I am excited for him. He reminds me of a young Kawhi Leonard, Leonard's like hybrid with a guy like Jay Crowder or Robert Covington. If he improves his shooting, get ready, folks, because this guy could be really good. Matisse could be really good. and I would watch out. So that's the pick I'm really happy about in this draft is Matisse Thybulle, because he is going to be a stud, all-time Pac-12 leader in steals. He's incredible. He was incredible at Washington, incredibly defensively, great. He's super athletic, and I believe he'll be really good at the next level, and I'm really happy with that pick. Love it. Now, to 34. Carson Edwards is still available, but the Celtics, with the pick that we just traded to them, take Carson Edwards, the pick before the Sixers, which is terrible. Not what I wanted, and I really wish we could have gotten Carson Edwards, but instead, we drafted a center out of Maryland, and then we traded him. We didn't even draft Bobo. We drafted a guy from Maryland that I don't remember the name of right now, and then we traded him, the Sixers. Then he was traded for later picks, more second rounders. We don't need more second rounders, and it doesn't really make sense because every year we trade these second rounders for more second rounders. 1 point cash in the second rounders. Why are you gathering so many second rounders? I don't get it, because it just doesn't make any sense. And then the pick after that, they got another good player, but then they traded him again for some cash considerations. And more second rounders. That's what they did. In the second round, they drafted one player, even though we had 4. And then with the other 3, we got cash considerations and second round picks. Terrible second round. Worst second round I've seen the Sixers done in the past couple of years. So let's break the rounds up into grades. If I had to grade round 1, round 2 for the Sixers, how they performed, what do I think? Again, Matisse will be really good at the next level, and I'm really hyped for him as a Sixers fan. I'm probably going to get my next Sixers jersey as Matisse because I think he could be really good and a really great role for a team that needs to win now. He will add a lot. If he improves his shooting, you better watch out. He'll be great on the Sixers. This one gets an A. This is easy an A pick. And so far it's an A draft grade after the first round. But then you go into the second, needing shooters, needing players. And instead, as I said, they trade these second rounders for cash considerations and more future seconds. At one point, you have to cash it in. And I don't see them doing that. They're probably just going to trade it for more second rounders in the future. So second round, terrible job. Draft falls apart. And the second round for me gets a D. Maybe that's even a little generous. A D minus. Just because it was so terrible. The Sixers did such a bad job in the second round. They did not cash in on their assets whatsoever. So overall, that gives the Sixers about, I'm going to have to give it a C draft, C plus, C. You can pick either one you want. Just because I'm really happy with the first round outcome. I'm happy with the main guy we got. But we get one player in the second, and all the other seconds were wasted. And that's upsetting to me as a Sixers fan. But that still wasn't the worst in Philly news this week. And we'll be going to talk about more Philadelphia after we talk about Bobo, which is our next story. Why did Bobo fall? And we'll be talking about that right here on TR Sports. Welcome back to TR Sports. Let's talk about Bobo. There's so much to talk about with Bobo, and we are not going to go in depth about everything, but let's just talk about what there is on the surface. So, going to the draft Thursday night, people asked me, why on paper is Bobo a top 20 pick, first rounder, but a guy like Taco Fall, who's taller, is a second rounder? It's because Bobo has a really rare skill that you don't see in too many big men. He plays like a guard. He is a 7'3" guard. It's dangerous. It's really scary. He's a lot like Nikola Jokic. But then there's your issue with the Nikola Jokic comparison. There is a big issue. Bobo's too skinny. This man has no muscle. He is all bones. And going into this college season before he got injured, Skinny, yes, he was. He was like his father. And, as it was accepted he's skinny, he's really tall, that might happen. But then he got injured. And during that injury, he lost a ton of weight. He walks into the draft combine, has one of the worst days probably of his career up to the date. And the results are that he lost a tremendous amount of weight, and his draft stock plummets from top 10 possibly to like the 20th pick in the draft. But still, going into the draft Thursday, he was projected as a first rounder. And he doesn't go. He doesn't go top 10, doesn't go top 15, doesn't go top 20, doesn't go 25, doesn't go 30, doesn't even go top 40. Bobo goes 44 to the Denver Nuggets. This man was in the green room. He was in the green room, and that's terrible for him, of course. But again, what are some reasons that Bobo possibly could have fallen? I think number one was the need at the position. I don't feel like a lot of the teams who are really desperate for a center wanted to take a risk on a guy who looked so rough, someone who is a lot of question marks. He's got a potential to be a superstar, but his body is just not built like an NBA player. He is so skinny. He really does need to gain weight to be a great player in the NBA. And that's the kind of thing around him is his weight. Of course, injury. When you're 7'3", there's going to be some injury question marks and injury troubles. So I think teams looked at that and looked at how skinny he was and kind of made an executive decision that we're not going to draft this guy. Too risky. He might get injured. And he weighs nothing. So those are the two big reasons. For me personally, I would have drafted Bobo if I was the Sixers. The Sixers had an opportunity to draft Bobo, as I said in the last segment, but decided to pass on him. And if I was a team in a lot of that situation, there's a lot of situations where I felt like, why not take the chance of Bobo with your second-round pick? Do it. What's the worst that can happen? He could be a superstar in this league. He can very well be a superstar. But it's all up to who picks him, and it's a really shame. It's a real shame Bobo got injured, because if he didn't, he would definitely be a top 5 pick in the draft, maybe even top 3. Maybe he would have gotten drafted over R.J. Barrett, and I don't know. But the injury kind of derailed the season he was having, and I really feel bad for Bobo, but I feel like he's going to use it as fuel, come back from his injury, and perform and play like a guard and hit the 3 like he was in college. He's a really, really impressive player, and I think there's some good stuff to come from Bobo in the future. I'm sure a lot of teams will regret passing on him, no matter what his weight is. So that concludes our 3 NBA draft topics, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about baseball once again. Not a team focus this week. We're going to wait another week. I think next episode we will have a team focus at the end of the episode. But this week we are going to be talking about the Philadelphia Phillies and how abysmal they've been. It's going to be a rant by me talking about my favorite team and some issues with them and their recent play. And that will be right here on TR Sports. Welcome back to TR Sports. It's time to talk about baseball, and we're going to get right into it because I'm about to put some heat on the Philadelphia Phillies, and I'm about to lay some hard facts, and I'm about to give a rant about my favorite team. Going into the offseason this year, the Phillies had big plans. They had all this money and all Matt Klentak, the owner, everybody, the John Middleton, the owner of the Phillies, everybody. They said they're going to spend stupid money. And that's what they did. JT Realmuto, Gene Segura, Bryce Harper, David Robertson, Andrew McCutchen. Great. You're thinking you come into the season, we're going to make the playoffs. I'm so excited. What a great year this is going to be for the Phillies. And man, did it start out great. First place. And that was up until last week when everything came down. Everything came crashing down. after the Reds series, the Phillies have been abysmal. They have been terrible. They have been god-awful. Don't even get me started on the recent stretch. Let me break down some games here. 6/10, Diamondbacks beat the Phillies 13-8. The next game is 6/11. Phillies get a win against the Diamondbacks. Next game, 6/12, Diamondbacks beat Phillies 2-0. 6/14, Braves walk off the Phillies. Phillies blow a save. 6/15, Phillies are able to collect a win. Great. Phillies got 2 wins over this 5-period stretch. 2 wins. Not good enough. And then you come after a win, Phillies come back, lose 1-15. 1-15 on 6/16 to the Braves. Next game was postponed. The game after that was postponed. And now it's time to play again. Phillies lose 3 straight to the Nationals. 3 straight games to the Nationals. They got swept. They got swept by the Nationals, who have a non-existent bullpen. Phillies don't have a bullpen either, but even with all the injuries, still a better bullpen than Washington. Washington is the mess of the league, and they get swept. And to make matters worse, on Friday, the Phillies lost to the Marlins 2-0. Aaron Nola was pitching, the whole crew was out there, and the Phillies lose 2-0 to the Miami Marlins. That is terrible. And to make matters worse, Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Gene Segura, Andrew McCutchen, who's injured, but still, none of them started. None of them, even Aaron Nola, none of them received a starting all-star. Phillies don't have a single starting all-star this year. So that means it's an embarrassment. The Phillies will have to have an all-star picked for them. Bryce Harper, the 1 year he's not an all-star is with the Phillies. So who's their all-star going to be? Could be Scott Kingery, great player. Could be a guy like Hector Neris, but that's it. That's not Bryce Harper, not the man who's going to make $330 million for the next 13 years. And of course, there's so much injury around this Phillies team, but there has to be some fight. There has to. The Phillies are now finding themselves 4.5 games back. They're 39-36. And this is the time of the season that if you are a Phillies player and you're a Phillies fan, this is the time you figure out what type of team you're dealing with. Are they going to claw back from this stretch? Are they going to come out of this 2-8 last 10 games? Are they going to come back from this, and are they going to take the division? This is a key part of the season. They get swept by the Nationals, lose 1 to the Marlins, lose a series to the Braves, and lose a series to the Diamondbacks. Those are the past series. They really need to get their act together. And, it's a real disaster down there. Aaron Nola's having a terrible season compared to last, even though he had a good outing against the Marlins Friday. He's not what he was. And a lot of injuries. But that's just not good enough. The pitching staff's not good enough. This injured bullpen isn't good enough. The starting lineup for some reason cannot produce. The only players right now producing on the offensive end for the Phillies are Scott Kingery, Gene Segura, and that's it. And you can make an argument for some other guys, but the real 2 guys that are contributing right now are those 2 guys. And there's a big surprise that Scott Kingery is the one contributing by a lot of people. It's a big surprise to a lot of people because he had a terrible season last year and he's having a great season this one. And it's a shame. It's a shame Scott Kingery's great season is being wasted away with this garbage product being put out on the field every day. And Jake Arrieta, if you are going to tell your team to get their act together and be good, how about you step up? How about you pitch a good game? Because the only players who are contributing, who are pitching, is Aaron Nola have had some good stretches. coming down as a starter. Not at all what he was last year, but he's been okay. And Hector Neris has been a great pitcher this year. Other than that, pitching staff, get your act together. Offense, get your act together. GM Matt Klentak, get your stuff together. You are 4.5 games back now, and you're going to have to figure out a way to make this Braves team lose that many games. You've had a couple good moves. You've had a couple good attempts. Jay Bruce was a good pickup, was really hot, but has really cooled down. You're going to need more than that. There's going to have to be some kind of move made here for a starting pitcher. I'm thinking a move kind of like trading Alec Boehm for a guy like Marcus Stroman. Maybe that's available. Maybe that's on the table. Explore that. Explore what you can get for a guy like Mickey Moniak or Alec Boehm. Or even a guy like Adam Hazley. Look at the options. Because you need a starting pitcher. Get a guy like Marcus Stroman. Get a guy like Garrett Cole. Get a guy like Trevor Bauer. Get a guy like Chris Archer. Get a guy like Corey Kluber. I can go down the list. I can go down the list of the players that the Phillies could possibly acquire by giving away their mediocre minor league talent. Giving away their talent of Mickey Moniak, who cannot hit. Or a guy like Alec Boehm, who cannot play defense or hit power. Even though Alec Boehm is having a good stretch right now in the minors. So that's my Phillies rant, and I'm really upset with the team right now. I just don't see the fight, and I don't see guys like a lot of them disappointed me. Maikel Franco comes out hot, has sucked, has been terrible this past stretch. Yeah, he's been awful, god-awful. Odubel Herrera is not even on the team because he decides to assault his wife. What is he doing? What is he doing? Is he, like, just get off the team. No one wants you here if you're going to do that to your poor wife. Because Odubel Herrera is a bad person after doing that. And I would be surprised if he comes back to the Phillies. But let's try to stay away from that subject a little. Rhys Hoskins has to pick it up. Please do. Please, just the whole team, be better. That's all I can say. And just, I'm a Phillies fan, so I really want this team to succeed, and I'm not rooting against you. I just want the best to happen to this team, and we have to make some moves, and there has to be some fight left in this Phillies team. Because we've run into a lot of problems in Philly, as the title says. And there are certainly plenty of problems in Philly. So that does include today's episode of TR Sports. I hope you guys enjoyed so much. I just wanted to give a full rant there. The Phillies have been frustrating for me this past week to watch or listen or even look at the scores at because they've been so terrible. But I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I will be in out of state. I will be in Maine next week, so I will be recording the podcast over there. So if the quality dips a little, I'm sorry. It's what happens sometimes because I'm on vacation. But I'm still going to give you guys a podcast. And then there's plenty to come left this summer. Lots of MLB news to cover. We can do more rants like that on other teams, and there's plenty of team focuses. There's also plenty of NBA free agency news to cover that's going to come up. Plenty of trades to talk about, I'm sure. And also, guys, if you let me know down in the comments if you do want to see something like a NFL team focus where we break down an NFL team and we look at them and break down each part of the team. So that might happen this summer. Just whatever can fill the time slot of the podcast and whatever is newsworthy and I feel like could provide good entertainment to the podcast, I will do. And I also feel like the special story of the XFL and the AAF went really well last week because I feel like I want to do more of those, talking about some other stories and bring them on the podcast. So, yes, it is a news podcast, but I also want to bring in some sports history stories that could really make it at times more interesting and spice it up a bit. So I'll have more time to try to make a better product. And the quality is probably not going to dip next week when I'm away because I have more time to produce the podcast. And each episode, we're trying to get better, trying to do our thing here on TR Sports. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe. Trying to build that viewership once again. And the more you guys subscribe and the more you like, the farther this podcast could get. So thank you guys so much for watching. And I will see you